Welcome back, everyone. It is a brand new season of From the Stands College Football Game Day Show, and joining me yet again, Andy Hopper, Tom Scavetta. How's it going, gentlemen?
It's going. It's going. College football has arrived. We had some great games last night. We have some excellent games tomorrow. We got a 2 versus 5 matchup, a 3 versus 11. A new season brings new expectations, and I'm thrilled to be part of this crew. Once again, this is the second full year now of all of us being together. So thank you very much for having me, Brian. And what's up, Andy?
Oh, not much, Tom. Brian, thanks again for having me. So happy to be back on these airwaves, shouting about something. But I'm feeling good. So far, it's the best time of year. I was talking to Tom before we started. There's just nothing like this early football when you're, not, I want to say easing into it, but now with week one, tomorrow it'll be full go. My team will already be hopefully 2-0
Yep.
by Saturday. But yeah, I feel great. ILL.
Yeah, you realize if some sort of crazy meteor hits, Illinois is in prime position to be in the national championship game at this point, because
If
they're
the
one of
season ended today,
exactly they're one of the
it'd be in.
few teams that has played so far. Um, but yeah, so I guess straight away, we'll get into, what are some off-season stories, some games at the start of the season that have, caught you guys' eyes so far, or, just over the past couple months. It's been very, very crazy. I know we didn't do any off-season shows, but a lot has happened. So, Tom, we'll start with you. I mean, what's been the story of the off-season for you?
Story of the offseason has been new LSU head coach Brian Kelly, his transition to Southern life, not just being the head coach of LSU football, but Southern life in itself. Um, there's been a lot of heat around this guy from the media. There's also been a good amount of praise that hasn't been shown. But I think LSU is a very, very interesting team this year. I want to see what they do with a new guy in charge that I happen to be very familiar with. That's my hot storyline of the offseason. You guys know as well as anybody, I'm a huge Notre Dame fan, but I'm going to be paying close attention to LSU games as well this season.
I figured as much. What about you, Andy?
I think one of the best storylines, or at least for me, I've got a couple, is these crazy NIL deals that just everybody seems to be getting, which is awesome to see some of the brands that these guys are partnering up with. Specifically, Nebraska wide receiver DeColdis Crawford and that air conditioning commercial he did for that local Lincoln HVAC place, which was great. And then also, I think the quarterback kind of carousel that we saw this year, guys that are the pretty big names. I think, Spencer Rattler comes to mind, Caleb Williams comes to mind, Bo Nix comes to mind, Quinn Ewers comes to mind, and I'm sure I'm missing a lot more. Oh, Tommy DeVito,
There
powerhouse,
you go.
New Jersey's finest, Tommy DeVito at Illinois. Um, so much movement. I think that's just the nature of college football now. Is these guys are going to go somewhere where they feel valued, and it doesn't matter if it's the second, third, fourth, fifth school. Um, Even specifically last night with the backyard brawl, we saw two former USC guys, Keaton Slovis and JT Daniels,
Great game, by
match
the
up
way.
there. Yeah, which was an awesome game. So it's not just quarterbacks to transfer, obviously, but I thought that was one of the biggest storylines for me, just seeing the massive movement of all these guys.
Yeah, that I actually completely forgot that Slovis was at USC. So that was a USC versus USC matchup. Um, yeah, actually, I mean, great picks because two of those were already on mine. More specifically for the Brian Kelly thing, for me, was his actual, like, the physical first introduction when he went to the basketball game and he tried to throw on that Bayou accent and it was just not working.
My family.
Yeah. it wasn't working, but I do appreciate the effort. The effort is what counts there. Um, and then yeah, another one for me. Miami is retiring the turnover chain. I talked about
Yeah.
that last season that I loved. It was kind of corny, but I love that they brought it back because that's such like a Miami vibe to do things like that. But yeah, I kind of I'm not too sad about it because as on brand as it was for them, so many teams, copied it in their own way, and it just kind of got out of control. And they're the first ones to lay it down now, which I think is a smart move. So they started it, they're getting out of it. And then the very last one, which is just recently, is South Carolina's mascot, um, Sir Sir Big Spur, the big cock on campus.
Cock
Uh,
Commander.
yes, the old owner is now mad that what was it? They wanted to cut like the top part of the chicken's head off. He said it was unbecoming of a fighting chicken or something very ridiculous. So local newspaper put up a poll. Of course, the winning name was Cock Commander. USC said they're not going to go with that though. But the team has already taken to it, so they're interviewing players after the whole thing, after the whole debacle, and I think the team's sticking with it. So I hope it catches on there, at least throughout the team. Um,
Spe- Speaking of those turnover things, did you see that UNLV has a turnover slot machine on their sideline?
the
This is
yes,
news to
yes, yes,
me.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, I did see that. I mean that one's kind of cool, but
Yeah.
turnover chain was the OG, and it has now been retired. And we will now move on to almost a breaking story. This happened only a few hours ago. CFP expansion has been confirmed, boys and girls. We're going to 12 teams as early as 2024, but 2026 is the date that they have set, and the commissioners are now pushing for 2024. Tom, I'm going to start with you again on this one because your team is sort of, in this awkward position with this whole thing, but they do have a commissioner that sat on this board with these conference leaders, I guess we'll call them, because you guys aren't in a conference. I know the offseason, there's been talks with all the realignment that Notre Dame, what are they going to do? Are they going to stay independent? Or are they going to go to a conference? This 12 team now, this 12 team scenario, I feel like is beneficial to Notre Dame, and I feel like they probably had their hands in the cookie jar on making it 12 instead of 8, because you guys wouldn't get an auto bid. So I guess what are your thoughts on 12 versus 8? The idea itself that we're getting expansion, does it benefit Notre Dame a lot or just a little here?
Just a little, because if you think about this, here's the reality of the situation: six conference champions. Notre Dame's not in the conference right now. So you're eliminating yourself from 1 to 12 spots to 1 to 6 spots. And that's what's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Notre Dame, because you have the six conference winners and the six at larges, right? Now, what was also mentioned today, and this has been a long time coming, the 10 FBS commissioners and Notre Dame AD Jack Swarbrick, who you may have saw in the Manti Te'o documentary if you watched that yet, will meet next Thursday in Texas on possibly implementing the format as early as 2024. This alludes to Notre Dame joining a conference sooner than later. There's a lot of honor in being an independent school. There's a lot of tradition and history in that you want to keep. But at the same time, the college football landscape is changing today for years to come. And when you hear that the top 1 to 4 seeds get a bye, you're putting all your chips to the middle of the table and saying, hey, I want in. I want in on this. I want Notre Dame to win a national championship. At this point in time, in my opinion, Notre Dame has a better chance at winning a national championship by joining a conference than staying independent.
So I guess you're valuing the bye week part like greatly here. in that scenario. Because
Now,
I feel like if
again,
they're
I'll be
in
honest. I'm just scratching the surface on this a little bit. Do the top four buys go to the top four of the six conference winners? Is that the situation there?
they haven't said, but I feel like that's
That would
probably
make
what's going to
sense, right?
happen. Yeah, like the top four
Notre Dame's
rankings.
out on that if they don't. So, I mean, there's a
I
lot
see what
of
you're
weight
saying.
that's being carried, but it also couldn't benefit them because look at the schedule Notre Dame plays now. They're already gaining a lot of opponents that are really good this year. We're playing Ohio State. We're playing Clemson, right? We're playing an ACC team, a Big Ten team. That's the value of being an independent school. You're not stuck to the same conference schedule every year where you can play these teams from all sorts of different conferences. Notre Dame has a game against Alabama scheduled for I think it's 2026 or 2027. Notre Dame couldn't do that if they were in the Big Ten right now. So I'm really in a lot of uncertainty right now. Are we going to stay independent long term? There's a chance. Are we going to join a conference? I think there's a slightly bigger chance.
All right, yeah, I'll just read really quickly the what was says. College Football Board of Managers, I guess is what they're calling themselves, voted Friday to expand CFP to 12 teams in 2026, but they're encouraging to go to 2024. The 11 presidents and chancellors comprising of the board, which is all the conference leaders, and then also, like you said, Swarbrick out of Notre Dame, because they're not in the conference, obviously, came to the decision. Like you said, they're meeting again in Dallas. 12-team model, 6 highest ranked conference champions, and 6 at-large teams. Andy, do you like that?
I love it. I think it makes it way obviously it makes it way more wide open. Makes it so it at least on the surface it feels like more teams have a chance. Um, I hope it. One thing I hope it doesn't do is make some of these teams kind of devalue the regular season a little bit, seeing as they have a little bit more leeway and they don't have to be in the top four. But at the same time, if there's the first round buys that they're offering, I think that still incentivizes it pretty well. I think my favorite part of this would be like the 5 versus 12 matchup, the 6 versus the 11, the 7 not the go what 7, 10, 8, 9 matchups that would occur on these college campuses, the first or second week of December. I think that has the opportunity to be some absolutely electric atmospheres and a lot of beers being deleted on those campuses on those days. I think they're saying they want to implement this by 2026. I believe some commissioners are they're trying to encourage the commissioners to implement it by 2024 at the fastest. They want change. They realize how much more money they can get also by expanding this playoff.
Yep.
It's like, oh, more playoff games, more fucking revenue and money in our pockets. Why didn't we do this sooner? Um, but no, I love it. I obviously as a fan of a middle of the road team, it makes you feel a little bit more hope about making a run at this maybe one day. Uh, Except, oh no, they're gonna go to super conferences, and we'll probably
Yeah.
just be even worse. But anyway, I like it. I just like more football. At the end of the day, give me more football.
Hey, that being said, you're in one of the super conferences, so you do have a front row seat here. Um,
Well, I know, but you're just adding more teams that'll just finish ahead of us.
true. Hey, those would be some quality losses, though. We know how much the committee likes to give points towards quality losses. So, but yeah, for me, Andy, you pretty much just hit the nail on the head with what I like about it. The on-campus aspect of this, I think, is gonna completely change the way we look at the playoff. It's sort of been this whole parade and show of bringing it to these big cities. They put them in obviously the biggest bowls that they offer, and have been rotating them. But I honestly think if the money can become equal, we might see in the future down the line the 1 versus 4 and 2 versus 3s switch out from bowl games to on campus games, because the environment that we're gonna see starting in between 2024 and 2026, whatever they decide, is going to be, college football like no other. To me, I think it's going to be similar to the vibe of March Madness, which anyone that watches March Madness, you see how crazy that gets, especially when, uh, the opening rounds, I guess we'll say, which are regionalized. So it gives, the fans that opportunity to make a pretty short drive usually to go watch their team in the first or second round, and those are just electric matchups every single time. So, yeah, I I love that they're doing it. Again, I hate the bye week thing. I say that ad nauseum, but I'll take what I can get at this point. So I'm happy with 12 teams here. The one ironic thing that I wanted to mention was all these conferences were fighting this for so long, and just in the past couple of months, we've seen realignment and TV deals that have shown us just the outrageous amount of money that there is to be made. And all of a sudden, these commissioners have turned on their heels and they're all for this. And oh, it'll help all these other smaller schools have a chance. No, it's going to help your wallets. We all know it. But, at least they're doing it. I don't really care what their reasoning is. They're doing it. So we'll move on to our next one, which is way too early predictions. We made some ridiculous ones last year. I think Harbaugh heard mine because I thought he was going to get fired. Actually, I knew he was going to get fired, but he did not. He met all of the requirements I asked of him to keep his job. But we'll move on to this year's. Andy, we'll start with you on this one. Do you have any crazy or weird predictions for us for this new season?
Chase Brown for Heisman. He's the best running back in the Big Ten.
Ooh.
Scott Frost is going to get canned before the season is over. CFP. Let me give you a dark horse.
Oh, give us one. Give it to us.
Dark horse.
Desmond Howard had a weird 4.
Yeah, that was insane. um, come back to me. I need to stew on it a little bit.
All right.
Those are those are my first two.
Well, Andy thinks of his dark horse. Tom, what do you got for us? Way too early predictions for the 2022-23 season.
I really like Will Anderson Jr. this year. Best defensive player in the nation, in my opinion, right? Linebacker out of Alabama was a monster last year, had like 17 and a half sacks, something like that, at least. And I think he's going to be a real candidate to win the Heisman this year as a defensive player, right? You look back to defensive players in the past who have been amongst the final 3 candidates, but I would love to see Will Anderson Jr.'s name in the mix. Jackson Smith and Jigba is the best wide receiver in college as of right now. He's a guy that's going to go very high in the draft next year. And now that Olave and Garrett Wilson are both off the team, CJ Stroud is going to have a strong connection with him. So I think those 2 guys are potential non-quarterbacks and running backs that you could throw into the mix for the Heisman Trophy discussion. I like what Bill Napier's done with recruiting for the Florida Gators. I don't want to overreact a little bit. I'm not saying Florida is going to have a great year, but I think in a couple years from now, expect them to return to the college football playoff discussion, especially with it expanding to 12 teams. I think the Gators have a huge challenge against Utah tomorrow. But at the end of the day, a lot of people like what Napier's been doing down there. And shout out to them. My third prediction, college football playoff dark horse. I can go wild and say like Baylor or something, or USC, but I'm not going to pick a Pac-12 team, not just because they're in the Pac-12, because they haven't beaten Notre Dame in so many years. If you don't beat Notre Dame, you're not getting in. Straight bottom line, right? The Notre Dame-Cincinnati game last year was a playoff game to get into the playoff, right? That's ultimately what that was. So I think if you're looking at dark horses this year to get into the college football playoff, I like the ability that Max Johnson has for the Aggies. It's tough, man. It's really tough. Penn State scares me in bad ways. I'm not too high on them still.
Well, let me interrupt you real quick, and maybe this will help you with your decision. Max Johnson won't be the starting quarterback announced today. They're going with Haynes King.
Really
I believe it was earlier today. But
Yep.
yeah,
It
Haynes
is.
King has won the job.
interesting. Um, college football playoff dark horse. I'm gonna go with the hell. I'm gonna say it. LSU.
I like
Ooh,
it.
wow.
I'm going way out of the box.
The allegiance to Brian Kelly.
Right? So are
Uh,
we going to see a Notre Dame LSU here?
I don't know, man.
Is that
I'm
too
just
much
thinking
Notre Dame?
SEC.
Is that too much Notre Dame to throw into the college football playoff?
I don't know. I mean, we know there's like two obvious ones that are likely going to make it, but I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to throw a curveball so that 10 weeks from
Right.
now, when we come back and talk about this, I can say I told you so. So that's the vibe I'm getting at right now.
All right, Andy, you have a dark horse for us, or
um,
do we save it for next week?
fuck, dude. Illinois, I'm all in. Come on, we're more
Oh
than
my
that. And
gosh, he's
Burrow,
going
trust
for
them.
it.
I'm kidding.
He's going for it.
Ah, nah, dude. When I think about it, it's just the same fucking teams again. It's
Yeah.
Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia's what comes to mind. Let's throw out. I'm gonna throw out Wisconsin. Maybe the Badgers make a run this year.
Okay. And just for anyone watching who did not see Desmond Howard's pick for the playoffs, his four was Texas A&M, Baylor, Pitt, and Michigan. So
Some places
I
11 and
don't
2 are
really
the worst.
know. I don't know what to say for some of those, but we will see. Move on to mine real quickly. Tom, I'm right on board with you. Will Anderson is going to win the Heisman this year. No true defensive player has ever won the Heisman. The closest we got was Charles Woodson, who, yes, DB, played really well in defense, but he was also wide receiver and he played special teams, so he's not a true defender. He does not fit into that mix. The closest we had after that was second place with Tom's own Notre Dame Manti Te'o, which you brought up the documentary show a few minutes ago. I watched it already, and it's pretty good. So anyone who's not seen it, I recommend going to watch that. But yeah, so Will Anderson gonna win the Heisman this year. 17 and a half sacks, 57 tackles last year. Incredible player. I think he ended the season with like 8 straight games with at least 1 sack, which is just insane. My second one, I'm gonna hedge that bet. Got to be smart with your bets here, people. Texas A&M is going to beat Alabama. The back and forth between Saban and Jimbo Fisher this season or this offseason was incredible. Usually Saban doesn't take the bait, no rat poison, but he did this season. He said Texas A&M bought all their players with the NIL money. They're the most expensive team ever assembled in college football. Listen, that game, October 8th, Bryant Denny Stadium in Tuscaloosa. Mark your calendars because that is going to be an absolute bloodbath. Highest rated recruiting team of all time, Texas A&M, taking on Alabama, obviously last season's finalists. That's going to be a fantastic game. That's going to wrap it for our predictions this year. We'll come back maybe to Andy next week to see if he's got a dark horse besides Illinois. Maybe he'll want to keep it at Illinois. We'll see.
Right,
Um,
guys.
But we're going to move on to our games of the week, the shots and chasers, your roadmap to college game day. First up, we have Texas A&M versus Sam Houston. I just said it, the most expensive team ever assembled. How much can they bully this Sam Houston team? This is not going to be a close one, but we get to see how much your money can buy and how many points you can beat Sam Houston by. Andy, we're not going to talk about who's going to win this game, but is this one to tune into, or is this you don't want to watch a pummeling like this?
If you're a Texas A&M fan, yeah, you're watching this. If you're anybody else, I don't think so, unless you're laying however many points they're giving the Aggies in this. Also, no, like you mentioned earlier, Haynes King named the starter. That's pretty interesting over Max Johnson. Then you talk about their recruiting class. How do all these young freshmen 5-star guys fit in here? And I guess I don't want to call it their first true test. I guess it's more of, oh fuck, West Virginia just threw a pick, or no, I'm sorry, Virginia Tech just threw a pick. God damn it. Yeah, Texas A&M rolls in this one. I don't think there's much more to say.
Tom?
A&M is going to win the football game easily. Aeneas Smith is a really good wide receiver. Remember, they have Devin Ashane as well in the backfield from last year, so those two guys should carry the load on this offense. But let's keep in mind that Texas A&M has a young offensive line. I would not be shocked if Sam Houston State is able to get some pressure early on in this game. A lot of redshirt freshmen and sophomores on that offensive line for the Aggies, so that's why I was a little reluctant before. Uh, when discussing the quarterback controversy, with Mac Johnson not starting week one, it's going to be interesting to see how well the Aggies look. We know they're going to win the football game, but how good are they going to look as a team? Because you look at who they have after the first 2 weeks of play: Miami, Arkansas, Mississippi State, and then Alabama. So the schedule gets complicated in just a few weeks, but the Aggies are going to roll for now.
Yeah, not much else to say. Um, this team is probably going to be very, very, very good. I think we all know that. But like you said, that young O line, they were elite on defense. We know that. Third in scoring defense all of last season. They beat Alabama with that team, but their offense, it struggled. They're 88th in pass yards, 44th in rushing yards. Listen, if you want to get to the playoff, if you want to win a title in this day and age, you have to be elite on both sides of the ball. This isn't, what was it, 2009 Alabama LSU, where you're going to win national championship 9-6. You need to have a potent offense. You need to have a potent defense. They didn't have the offense last season. Yes, I think King probably would have made a difference had he not gone down injured. But listen, this is a tune-up game. Probably will tune in just a little bit to see how explosive the offense is, because they're going to need that if they want to challenge for a title. And then our shot for the 12 noon game, which more people will probably have on, honestly, is Appalachian State versus North Carolina, in-state rivalry. Andy, who you got for this one?
I'm taking App State. I was not super impressed by North Carolina in week 0. They played an FAMU team that was missing, I believe, 26 total players. And there was a large portion of that game where they let the Rattlers hang around. No disrespect to them at all, but it's just not what you expect from an ACC team. So I actually am going to take App State. I don't even know if it's an upset. I think it's almost a pick 'em at this point if you look at it from a gambling perspective. But I'm going to go App State.
Yeah, it's a half point as of, I think, like just before filming. Half a point in favor of UNC. Tom?
Well, you got to remember too, Drake May, right? I believe he's the quarterback now for UNC, taking over for Sam Howell. So they lost him. They lost a few guys up front on the offensive line. Josh Azudu and Marcus McKeithen specifically are two names that come to mind, and Tamon Fox too in that edge rushing room. But who do they still have? They have Josh Downs, excellent wide receiver. Miles Murphy at the 3 tech position on defense that I really like. But let's keep in mind, UNC does have an older offensive line. Uh, all seniors and grad students up front. And May did throw 5 touchdowns last week for UNC. Now, the concern for me, Andy, when we talk about UNC, I know you touched upon it a moment ago. I'm not in love with the defense. I'm not in love with the defense. And I think App State has a decent amount of players that can make plays in this game because they're an old team as well. App State also has all seniors on their offensive line. I love their tight end, Henry Pearson. It's not a show without mentioning tight ends in this game. Henry Pearson.
Count the Tom tight end references this year. That's number one, ladies
That's
and gentlemen.
number
Starting
one.
off strong.
One other guy I want to look out for in this game is Trey Cobb. Trey Cobb is an interesting linebacker who has the ability to get to the quarterback, but you know what? Just because I like being different from Andy, I'm going to roll with North Carolina here. I want to see Drake May, go up against some better competition. And again, at the end of the day, I think UNC will get it together this week and improve to 2-0.
Yeah, listen, App State is always the fun team to root for. They beat yesterday, actually. I think it was September 1st was the 15-year anniversary of that glorious win over Michigan, which I think was maybe one of the best games in college football history for neutral fans to watch Michigan go down to an FCS school. App State in the FBS now, killing it in the Sun Belt.
The Fun Belt.
Exactly. This team is consistently good in the Sun Belt year in year out. Obviously, I would say Sun Belt is probably the second or third best, not third best G5 conference. So there's still not, it's not the best competition, but they have players. They get players year in and year out. And this is an in-state rivalry. That counts for something. They're going to want to beat this team. Tom, you said it. UNC has lost a ton of their big players. The players that contributed the most on the field and off the field. Their leaders, Sam Howell's gone. They do have Josh Downs, but they also lost Ty Chandler, their leading rusher, to the draft last year. So big piece is missing. Like you said, they let up almost 300 yards through the air against FAMU last week. App State has a pretty good QB, Chase Bryce, sixth season, so maybe he's been there a bit too long. Some Van Wilder stuff going on, but he has a school record 3,300 yards last season, 27 touchdowns. So if their secondary is as suspect as it was in the FAMU game, they could be in trouble here. So listen, I'm gonna keep riding that App State hype from 15 years ago. I'm taking App State in this game. I'll take him with the plus and half point too. So App State for me.
I love it.
As well.
Chase Bryce of Clemson fame, Clemson, Duke, and now App State. I did not know he was still their quarterback. I thought he just had 1 year left last year. That's amazing.
He's there forever. Moving on to the 3:30, we have rank versus rank matchup, probably the biggest matchup of the week. Just kidding, Tom. Sorry. I know we have Ohio State and Notre Dame coming up next. Got to get a jab in there early. But Georgia taking on Oregon, number 3 versus number 11. Andy, we'll start with you. Who's taking this one?
I think I have to go with Georgia here. I'm going to be rooting for Oregon in the game. I think the storyline here is Georgia defensive coordinator Dan Lanning from last year, now the head coach for the Ducks. It's going to be interesting to see what changes he's kind of made at Oregon, how similar those defenses are going to be, how they really stack up. Also, Bo Nix, new quarterback for the Ducks. I guess you can spin it and say, oh yeah, he has a lot of experience against SEC defenses, but I don't know. I think the spread is Georgia's.
It's huge.
Favored by 17.
Yeah.
I believe. I don't know if I'm going to touch the spread. I don't even know if I'll touch the total either. I think it'll be a fun game to watch. It'll be in Atlanta, but not one I would know if I want to gamble on.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take Georgia to win.
Tom?
Oh, I'll touch the spread. Dan Lanning era begins. The Bo Nix. Well, here's the thing. Oregon hasn't come out and committed, to the media, like who's really going to be the quarterback. But we all kind of know it's going to be Bo Nix, right? With Ty Thompson backing him up. You look at what they lost. They lost Kayvon Thibodeau on the defensive side of the ball. That's a huge loss. How much can Brandon Dorlus really do on that defensive line? How much can Noah Sewell do on that second level? Can Christian Gonzalez contain guys like Ladd McConkey in the secondary? It's going to be tough. I love Dan Lanning and what he brings to the table, but you have to look at Georgia here. Brock Bowers is the go-to option on that Georgia offense.
2 tight end references.
You still got Stetson Bennett at QB, who did a remarkable job last year. And I get it. There's no James Cook and Zamir White anymore, but you have a 1-2 punch with Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton. I'm excited for this Georgia Bulldogs team. Defensively, they're always good. They had a historic defense last year. I mean, look at all the guys that came out in the draft. Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, Trayvon Walker, Lewis Seen. They just replace players every single year. So give me Georgia this one, and I like them to win by 3 full possessions.
I like it. We're running on time here, so I'll try to go real quickly. Listen, I said this about Alabama last year during the first week. when we were talking about, how many players they lost. Georgia lost 15 starters off this national championship winning team. You're not wrong, though. They replace them so easily, just like Alabama does. Maybe just like Texas A&M will start doing with all this money that they have, right, Mr. Saban? Um, so, yeah, Oregon, I think, is still in a rebuilding phase. Uh, Georgia just won a title. The monkey is off their back for at least another 20, 30 years now that they've got that taken care of. So I think the pressure on this team, to achieve greatness is no longer there. You've got Stetson Bennett still running things. I still don't think he's anywhere near like elite level quarterback, but as a leader, I think he's a great asset to still have on that team with all these other guys that they lost. So I'm taking Georgia by 17 ish. Yeah,
17-ish.
well, it's 16 and a half is what it's at right now. I think I would still take Georgia minus 16 and a half. Probably not a smart bet, but what are you gonna do? Then in our chase,
Defending champs.
yeah, in our chaser for 3:30, we have Arkansas taking on Cincinnati. Tom, I'll start with you on this one. Who's taking it?
Well, we got KJ Jefferson against the newcomer at quarterback for the Bearcats. I think his name is Ben Bryant. So that should be really interesting. I don't know what Cincinnati has up their sleeves this year. This is a 13 against this is a 19 against 23 matchup. So I'm looking at this game right now and I'm trying to find out who is going to make the most plays because both of these teams are essentially evenly matched, right? The Bearcats lost Alec Pierce. I mean, you still got Josh Weil at tight end, who's a really good football player. And the defense is, I mean, they lost Ahmad Sauce Gardner in the draft. They lost Majai Sanders. So are they going to able to rebound? I think they will. They have a lot of veterans stepping up on that defense. I'm confident in their offense as a unit. They're not going to blow away you with points. But when I look at Arkansas, outside of Bumper Pool, what else really scares you about their defense, right? So I'm going to go with the Bearcats in this one because last year when I picked against the Bearcats, it came back to bite me in the butt. So I will willingly pick the Bearcats to win this one and start the season off 1-0. Sorry, KJ Jefferson. I couldn't pick you this time, but yeah.
All right, Andy.
I don't know, Tom. I think I have to go Arkansas here. I know we always like to be at each other's heads here with these picks, but I really like KJ Jefferson coming back and what he brings. We're talking about an SEC team versus a team from the American Athletic Conference. No disrespect. I guess actually they're about to move to the Big 12. And they did make the Final Four last year, but I just feel like they lost so many pieces. Ritter, Kobe Bryant, gone as well. I don't know. I love Cincinnati. We talked about Cincinnati all year last year. I was a major proponent of them. I think I have to go Arkansas here. I think Cincinnati has a very good chance of covering the spread and keeping this close. I love Luke Fickell. He's a great coach. But I'm going to go with the SEC, just kind of being this SEC team in Arkansas, just being a little bit bigger and a little bit more talented than Cincinnati.
Yeah, KJ Jefferson for me, 2,500 yards. I talked about Arkansas a lot last year. I know they didn't live up to the expectations, but I still love what Sam Pittman is doing. The hog mollies, right? Both sides of the ball. We talked about that probably every single time that Arkansas came up last year. Cincinnati for me has just lost too many pieces that were too important to that offense where I don't trust, I guess, the production to come out of there right now. You lose Desmond Ritter. Okay, yeah, he wasn't, didn't have the best arm, but he was still resourceful. But they also lost Jerome Ford. And then on the other side of the ball, you lose your two best cornerbacks to the draft as well. So they could be suspect on both sides of the ball. I'm taking Arkansas, taking the pit boss. Moving on to our 7:30, the game you probably wanted to talk about most, Tom. We have Ohio State taking on Notre Dame. Playoff implications in Week 1. I guess I'll start with you, but I think I know who you're going to pick, Tom.
Well, we'll see. let's break this
Ooh.
down, right? We have to break this down. You have C.J. Stroud, Travion Henderson. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's a lot of weapons on offense going up against guys for Notre Dame. You have Isaiah Foxy coming back, who is a real trooper defensively. Riley Mills has developed into a nice piece. You're looking at the linebacking core. A lot of guys came back, and J.D. Bertrand, Jack Kaiser, Bo Bauer. And the secondary, you still have Cam Hart. You have the Northwestern transfer and Brandon Joseph, who might be the MVP of the secondary this year, and Clarence Lewis Jr. What really concerns me is our offensive line because to this 11th hour, we still don't know if Jarrett Patterson's going to play or not. He was projected to be a second to third round draft pick this year, and he came back to Notre Dame for his grad season. The offensive line is concerning. Michael Mayer is a beast. He is the number one weapon on this offense. He's going to make some plays in this football game, but they lost Avery Davis, who's out for the season. That's a huge blow. So you're looking at guys like Braden Lenzy and Lorenzo Styles trying to make up for that loss. And I love Chris Tyree at running back and Logan Diggs as well. But first year head coach and Marcus Freeman did not look that impressive in the bowl game. I'll put it to you this way: I think Freeman's going to be a great head coach, but I think Notre Dame would have a much better shot to beat Ohio State with Brian Kelly at the helm at this time than Marcus Freeman. It's just youth. This is going to be a youthful year. And the domino that I haven't mentioned yet is Tyler Buchner. Everyone talked about why is Notre Dame using three quarterbacks last year? Well, I guess it's to prepare for this, right? They're going to go into the horseshoe, and Notre Dame is going to come out with a loss. Notre Dame will start the season at 0-1. Ohio State's going to win, but Notre Dame will cover the spread, and I do think this sadly could put us out of the college football playoff conversation for 2022. I just think this young squad is going to have to come back in week 2 against Marshall and really put the stamp on them. But there are other opportunities for Notre Dame to make it to the playoff. It's going to be too tough on the road. New quarterback, new head coach, you name it. Ohio State's winning.
Well, I'm going to hit you with a patented Lee Corso, not so fast, Tom, because ESPN's playoff predictor said that even if they lose to Ohio State, they're giving Notre Dame a 95% chance to make the playoffs still if they win out. So uh, I'd like those odds. Obviously, the win would be better, but I wouldn't quite say that you'd be eliminated if you get that loss. And interestingly enough, I did my own. I took it a little bit farther. If you lose that game and Clemson, which would you consider Clemson's probably your second biggest game on the schedule this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you lose both those games, you're still sitting at 54%. Obviously, you don't want to lose two of those because, then, you're basically flipping a coin at that point, hoping other teams do bad. But, yeah, I don't think you guys are entirely out of the race if you lose that game. I mean, unless it's, like 60-7 or something ridiculous, but I don't think that's going to happen. But, yeah, for me personally, I kind of agree with you. I think Freeman's going to do great there, but it's still just too early. Ohio State lost their two best receivers in Olave and Wilson to the draft, but C.J. Stroud is probably, I think, probably the front runner along with Bryce Young for Heisman this year. So, man, yeah, that team's just too loaded. I can't. I wanna be nice to start the season off, Tom. I gave so many jabs at Notre Dame last year, but I can't do it. So I'm going Ohio State with this one. Andy.
Yeah, I got to go with the Buckeyes as well. There's just too much talent there. Offensively, a guy that you guys haven't even talked about yet, who I'm super excited to watch this year, is Marvin Harrison Jr. and kind of what he'll be able to do opposite of Smith and Jigba. I think CJ Stroud is primed for a huge year. Obviously, he's one of the Heisman favorites. Just gave every one of his teammates like a $500 gift card to go get a suit, so they
Yep.
look good for week 1. Look good, feel good, play good, get paid good. Um, but yeah, I gotta go Buckeyes here. Simply, and this is gonna be like an all-time uniform matchup. I think it's gonna be a great visual here with the Golden Dome helmets going into the horseshoe against the Buckeyes. But I just think there's gonna be too much for Ohio State. I did like how in Marcus Freeman's press conference, he um, the reporter made him aware of the spread. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go use that in the locker room. I'm gonna go use that." So he's aware of the spread. Be aware of that, anybody who's betting on the game. But yeah, I'm going Buckeyes here.
All right, and then to close it out, our 7:30. If you hate both Ohio State and Notre Dame, Florida versus ranked Utah. We are talking ranked number 7 Utah here, boys and girls. Obviously, this is just preseason rankings. I don't think anyone loves preseason rankings, but this is that's a hefty toll to put on a team like Utah at this time. Andy, we'll start with you on this one. Is that justified? Do we think Utah's a threat here this season? Are they beating the Gators?
Um, I don't know. I actually like their chances. I know it's very tough to go down to Florida, play in the swamp, and take the Gators out. But if you look at how Utah, finished the season last year on a very high note, they bring their quarterback in Cam Rising back, who I think that's the matchup here I'm most interested in is Cam Rising versus Anthony Richardson. I think it's going to be an awesome quarterback matchup here in Week 1. I am going to take the Utes though to go down to Gainesville and take this win. I am buying the Utah stock. I know that's not very smart to buy a Pac-12 team stock, but I do think they could. You know what? Maybe they'll be my dark horse.
Okay.
Maybe they will. But I like Cam Rising. He's what he's able to do in the pocket. He's super mobile. He can hurt you with his feet. He can hurt you with his arm. And then Anthony Richardson is just an absolute freak of an athlete who I love to
Yes.
watch play football as well. So I think it's going to be a great game. I'm going to take the Utes.
All right, Tom.
Swamp is a tough place to play for anybody. I mean, we saw a perfect example of that last year. I mean, Alabama almost came out with a loss, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how this game unfolds. I think you look at the quarterback matchup, Anthony Richardson, first year as the full time starter, which is important to note. I think he's going to have a good season. Ricky Pearsall at wide receiver is dangerous, 6'1". They have height at the receiving unit. Justin Shorter and Xavier Henderson as well. A lot of new guys on that offense. But I love Utah. I love Cameron Rising. His stock is going up, living up to his last name. And you look at their formations and personnel, the 12 personnel set. I mean, Brant Kuth was their leading target last year over the middle of the field, getting first downs. I'm not going to mention his position because you're going to tally again. And then there's also Dalton Kincaid. So those two tight ends right there, two seniors that you could rely on in the passing game against Florida, a defense that isn't so well designed to cover the tight ends. And they do present some blitz packages that could cause some problems. But Billy Napier's first game against Utah, the Utes will come out victorious.
I like it. I'm also going with the Utes here. Uh, Obviously, I'm never going to be on Florida's side, or at least for the most part. Guess it depends on who they're playing, but yeah, I think I don't know if a 7 is justified this early. I hate preseason rankings, um, but I do think this is going to be a very good team. You guys obviously just covered the hell out of Cam Rising. Yeah, their run game is just insane. They also have Tavion Thomas and Mike Bernard, who, along with Rising, over 2,000 yards on the ground, 13th ranked uh, ground game out of the entirety of college football between them. 1,100 yards for Thomas and 21 TDs. So when you have that many weapons in the same package, it's hard for the defense to know what to do. I don't know much about Florida's returning defenses here. So if their run defense is even the slightest bit suspect, this could be a huge problem for them. I think the only thing they have going for them is that, like Andy said, Richardson is an absolute freak athlete. I guess similar to the Cam Newton era when he was at Auburn, where they could be down 20 points and he's just going to put the team on his back because no one's going to be able to stop him. And then if we're talking on history side, Florida has the longest active winning streak in home openers. They have not lost a home opener since 1989.
Shit.
Yeah, so I saw that and I was like, oh, that's going in the notepad because that's a ridiculous stat right there. I know that SEC likes to schedule cupcakes for their openers, but pizza's there. But yeah, I really like this Utah offense a lot, so I'm taking the Utes. And that is going to wrap up our show for Week 1, 2022-23 season. We'll see everyone next week. Thank you, Andy and Tom, for joining us again for this upcoming season. Enjoy the games, everybody, and we will see you next week.